When rumors started to circulate from Roger Federer's camp that Alex Eala eclipsed Federer's own protege and threatened the meticulously constructed legacy of his chosen successor, Rafael Nadal simply broke his silence and didn't hold back. No one anticipated that the King of Clay would take the lead. However, Nadal carried out his usual actions. When it counted most, he arrived. They don't want you to know this story. Long before the athletes themselves realized what it meant, there was a rivalry. The tennis world was divided between Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal for more than 20 years. On the same court, two ideologies, two personalities, and two periods repeatedly collided until the conflict between them transformed the sport itself. Federer, the tennis maestro from Switzerland, is the epitome of elegance, grace, and poetry. And Nadal, the Mallorca-born Spaniard who transformed hardship into art and turned it into a source of strength. They had 40 encounters. Head-to-head, Nadal led 24-16. However, the complete picture between these two guys was never shown by the data. They had more in common than rivalry. Only the greatest can comprehend the mutual respect that existed between them. And when both players retired, Federer in 2022 and Nadal in 2024, the tennis community prepared for the inevitable question that usually accompanies a legend's departure. Next up, who? The 18-year-old Brazilian sensation Xiao Fana, who modeled for running, a sportswear company that Federer co-owns, provided him with the solution. With his talent, Fana won the 2023 US Open Junior Championship and made waves at the 2025 Australian Open when he defeated Andre Rublev to get to the second round. Not only did Federer support him, but he also believed in him, gave him a promotion, and used him as the face of a future he was subtly creating behind the scenes. Nadal's response was distinct and had been formulated over a much longer period of time. Since she was just 13 years old, Alex Eala had been training at the Rafa Nadal Academy. The left-handed Filipina from Quezon City arrived in Mallorca as a youngster with an inexplicable appetite that matched her skill. Nadal observed her development. During her breakthroughs, he sent her congrats. He followed her ascent in the rankings, as only a true mentor would. Two legends, two chosen ones, and a world ready to learn that these stories couldn't continue to be parallel indefinitely. However, no one was ready for this. What happens when one of those selected ones grows so quickly that it begins to overshadow the other? Because that's precisely what started to occur in 2025, and things swiftly became extremely complex when the silent tension at last found a voice. You must first recognize how remarkable Alex Eala's ascent was in order to comprehend why this debate erupted in the manner that it did. This was not a slow ascent up the ranks, it was an explosion. In a single season, she became the first Filipina to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal, earn a WTA singles title, and place in the top 100 worldwide. She enjoyed a career-high ranking of number 50 in the world at the end of 2025. However, the figures don't accurately reflect what transpired. The crowds are not depicted by the numbers. Eala not only advanced to the semifinals of the Miami Open in March 2025, but she also defeated titans in the process. She advanced to the Miami Open semifinals after defeating Madison Keys and EGAT before falling to Jessica Pegula. She defeated the champion of the Australian Open. The previous world number 1 was defeated by her. As a qualification, she did it. Additionally, the Filipino community in Miami, as well as those watching from phones and laptops around the 7,000 island archipelago, went completely insane. The US Open followed. Drama abounded in the third set. Despite falling behind by 15, Eala persisted. She clawed her way to 45 in a bold comeback. The dispute followed. She flicked a ball at the net, but it was unclear whether her racket had passed the tape. Kater Nuni, the chair umpire, looked over the video. He decided in Eala's favor. Clara Tolson, her opponent, burst out. The audience erupted. In the midst of the turmoil, a 20-year-old Filipino girl won her maiden Grand Slam. Main draw match collapsed on the court in shock and caused the entire world to watch. Regarding Eala's matches, a tennis referee from Dubai who had already seen Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, and Agassi grace that court remarked, "This was a very different experience." Due in large part to Eala's presence, ticket sales at the 2026 Dubai Tennis Championships increased by 48% year over year. In an interview with the Nothing Major podcast, former professional Steve Johnson was asked if Eala was the biggest attraction in women's tennis. He responded right away, "Indeed." And all this time, where was Fauna? Working, grinding, and completing everything correctly. But wherever Aya went, the spotlight, that unbelievably brilliant, unbelievably loud spotlight, followed her. And that disparity was starting to lead to discussions that ought to have remained confidential in the tennis community's hallways. This is where the story takes a drastic turn, so listen carefully. The Swiss legend sat down for a lengthy interview during a promotional event in late 2025 that was focused on Federer's impending entrance into the Hall of Fame in 2026. Before a journalist brought up the next generation of stars, the talk was friendly and sentimental. Federer grinned when Funa was brought up. Then the room was filled with Eala's name. Federer's remark was not yelled. It wasn't a tirade. In actuality, it was given with a level of deliberate precision that intensified the pain. He made the cautious, tactful, but clear suggestion that other budding stars had found it challenging to receive the credit they deserved because to the intense media focus on Eala, that there was an imbalance in the coverage. He claimed that one player's capture of what he described as a phenomenon of nationalism rather than tennis merit was the reason why equally worthy players like Fonka were being passed over. The internet didn't wait for background information. It never happens on the internet. The term nationalism rather than tennis merit was clipped, shared, quoted, and reacted to about 10 million times across platforms in a matter of hours. Filipino tennis fans, who were already the world's most organized and fervent supporters, rallied right away. Comment sections become battlefields. Once almost universally revered, Federer's name was suddenly trending for all the wrong reasons, and the same question was resounding everywhere. Will there be a voice from within tennis? Will someone stand up for her? For the first time since his retirement, Rafael Nadal took up a racket on November 19th, 2025, precisely 1 year after his last professional match in the Davis Cup Finals. Alexandra Eala, the current WTA world number 50, was his first practice partner when he returned to the court at the Rafa Nadal Academy. It was not a coincidence. Nadal is not a man who makes mistakes. In the caption, he said, "1 year later, it felt great to be back on a tennis court." He shared the photo on social media. "Practicing with you, Alex Eala, was fantastic. I'll be stronger the next time." Eala said, "Back like you never left." Simple words, but they made a big impression given all that was going on surrounding her name at the time, because that day, Nadal and Eala did more than just smack tennis balls. In a world where strong men tended to remain neutral in order to preserve their own legacies, he stood publicly, clearly, and obviously beside her. Nadal made a decision. The 20-year-old Filipino girl on his side had trained at his academy since she was a young child and had applied all he had taught her about fighting spirit to courts all around the world. Then, when asked specifically about Federer's remarks on young players and media imbalance in a later interview, Nadal deliberately and precisely chose his words, just as he does with his shots. According to him, every athlete who attracts news fans should be honored rather than viewed with suspicion. The supporters' fervor does not detract from tennis. It is essential to it. Claimed he had spent years observing Alex Eala's work, and that the size of a fan base should not be mistaken for lack of merit. "Roger and I have a great relationship. We have regular conversations," Nadal said tactfully, leaving the possibility of friendship open. However, the message was clear on this issue. Nadal was not going to overlook it, not with someone he had publicly supported, believed in, and mentored since before the world even knew her name. The tennis community was affected because you can tell when something serious is at stake when Rafael Nadal, who has never actively sought controversy for its own sake, publicly raises his flag. But now is the time to slow down and pose the more difficult query. Was Federer completely mistaken? Fanska is unique. He is technically talented, athletic, and cognitively mature for his age, making him a real potential star. Furthermore, it is undeniably true that the cultural phenomena of Eala has led to a degree of media attention that occasionally eclipses performance indicators. Following Miami, a series of early departures prompted hate speech from both new and casual fans. The conversation surrounding Eala frequently veers between excessive criticism and blind adoration, neither of which is beneficial to the athlete or the sport. To be honest, Ia herself didn't mince words following a crushing 6-2 loss to Coco Gauff in Dubai. She acknowledged that she was still lagging behind the best women's tennis players. Being so honest at such a young age is uncommon and impressive. She doesn't require shielding from reality. She has demonstrated her ability to Confront it head on. However, there is an important distinction between dismissal and constructive critique, between erasing accomplishment and admitting deficiencies. Eala herself responded to the situation with her usual lucidity. Being thankful is something I constantly try to do. I've witnessed some extreme poverty in my hometown. I've witnessed significant struggle. I can appreciate what I have even though I haven't personally experienced that struggle, and think about what she has truly accomplished. After removing all the noise, she started 2025 at number 138. Take a moment to distance yourself from the drama. Take a break from the Twitter wars, the headlines, and the quotes that have been cut, because there is much more to this story than just a dispute between two retiring legends. Tennis is evolving. Once controlled by a tiny group of American and European celebrities and viewed by a very small worldwide audience, the sport is now becoming more accessible. New faces, new admirers, and new markets. Additionally, the new admirers are not passive. They're impassioned, well-organized, noisy, and very involved. A seasoned Dubai referee who had watched the world's best players for decades claimed that the atmosphere at Aya's matches was unlike anything he had ever seen. Not necessarily louder, but distinct in sort, more pressing, and more vibrant. John Neer got it exactly right. Some enormous markets have unrealized potential. All they need is for players to step up and establish themselves. And Alex has done just that. Just to see what it's like on the court, you want to watch her games. This is the tension that now exists at the core of professional tennis. The established institutions, the old guard, and the meticulously maintained hierarchies of investment and attention. They are coming into contact with an unanticipated force. And that power has a name, a backhand that has defeated 3 Grand Slam champions in a single tournament run and a global ranking of number 31. It's more than simply a good moment between a coach and his pupil when Nadal stands up for Eala. It makes a statement about the type of sport tennis aspires to be. It is a claim that the game's gatekeepers are unable to make because the new star is too well liked or the new crowd is too noisy. You can't ask everyone to observe and then be upset when everyone turns up. I'd like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport, Coco Gauff remarked on the court following his victory over Aya in Dubai. Thank you so much. It seems fantastic to me. Gauff acknowledged the gift Aya was providing the game even after defeating her. She was described as a fantastic role model by Jessica Pegula. It's something special how she's been able to pack stadiums and how her country supports her, Pegula remarked. She manages it with such grace and maturity. For the first time in a year, Rafael Nadal returned to a tennis court, picked up a racket, and gave it to Alex Eala. Nadal famously claimed that he never focused about records, only the next point, to the 20-year-old Filipino who had taken his academy's name around the world and given it a new meaning, not to Fana or anybody else. That says it all. It's not really about blame in this story. It's not really about Fana versus Eala or Federer versus Nadal. It's about a sport that is at a turning point in its history and must decide whether to embrace its current state or resist it out of longing for the past. Alex Eala's fan base wasn't created by her. One unachievable triumph at a time, she earned it. There is only one conclusion that can be drawn from the public alignment of 2 of the greatest players in history on opposing sides of her story. She's already too important to overlook. We've left you with this question, and we'd want to hear your response in the comments section right now. Is Alex Eala currently the most significant tennis player? Not the best, but the most significant. Since those are 2 very different things, and the difference between them may determine the sport's destiny. You already know what to do if you've come this far. Click subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment below. Is Nadal correct to stand up for Eala? Did Federer go too far? Let the discussion begin.